Hello, Year 3. Today we're going to talk about rationing. But before we do that, I have a question for you to start with. I have drawn two shelters here, a Morrison shelter and an Anderson shelter. And I would like you, if you can, to try to write two facts about, or think of two facts. Tell me about a Morrison shelter and two facts about an Anderson shelter. See if you can do that without using your book. See if you can think of two things you could tell me about a Morrison shelter and two things you could tell me about an Anderson shelter. Welcome back, Year 3. I've written a few words onto the board here. These may have been things you had thought of when you were thinking about these two shelters. Morrison shelter was kept inside, so it might have been slightly warmer. It was very small. It was made out of metal. It had almost metal wiring on the side and a metal slab on the top. An Anderson shelter would have been quite cold and damp. It was made out of corrugated iron, so bendy iron. It would have been kept outside, been half buried in the ground. There may have been sandbags kept outside the front as well. So all different things you might have remembered. Hope you remembered some of those facts. Today we're going to talk about rationing. Now, food that was in short supply, food that people in Britain did not have a lot of, had to be rationed, and you could only get certain amounts. Everyone would have been given a ration book, and you would take that book once a week for it to be signed to say that you'd taken your rations of certain foods. Now, lots of different food was rationed. I've got some examples on the board here. Sugar, tea, cheese, bacon, jam, sweets, butter, milk, eggs, all foods that would have been rationed, where you would only receive certain amounts of those foods. For example, an adult would get 3 ounces of cheese, which is 84 kilograms. 84 grams. To be able to compare that, I have a normal block of cheese here. This is 400 grams, whereas an adult would have about 80 grams for a week. So this block of cheese would have to last you really like 5 weeks worth of cheese. So it is only a very small amount, but it had to be used very carefully and not wasted. The same with jam. An adult would be given 2 ounces of jam, which is again about 50 grams, a little bit more than 50 grams. I have a jar of jam here, and this is 450 grams. So it would have to have lasted about 9 weeks. This is 9 weeks worth of jam for someone. So again, it's only a very small amount that you would get each week. So you'd really have to look after it and make sure you used it very sparingly. So those are just 2 examples of the amounts of food that you would receive in your rations each week. The first sheet I've given to you is a list of how much food people were given each week. So you can see it's written in ounces, but on the second sheet it does tell you how much an ounce is, which is 28 grams. So not very much at all, 28 grams. You have a few different tasks today. Your first job is to draw your rations. Now, you could draw the rations that you would receive, or you could draw the rations that your whole family would receive. So for me, if it was me and my wife and my son, we would get 2, 4, 5 ounces of jam, because it says on this second sheet, a child's ration was exactly half the adult's ration. So I would get 2 ounces of jam, my wife would get 2 ounces of jam, but my son would get 1 ounce of jam. So we'd have 5 ounces of jam between us. So you could try and draw the rations that your family would get altogether. So everyone's will be different because people's families are different sizes. Or you could just draw your own rations. And then there are some questions to answer about your family's rations. The first one, how much jam would your family get each week? I've just answered that for my family. I would get 2 ounces, my wife would get 2 ounces, and my son would get 1 ounce. So we would get 5 ounces of jam between us. So you have to try to answer the 7 questions that are on this sheet, all about your rations or your family's rations. And then try to think of 2 meals that you could make with your rations. People ate lots and lots of vegetables during World War II because they were not rationed. So people grew lots of their own vegetables. And that way it meant they had lots of food to eat because they could just eat the vegetables that they could grow. So the meals that you come up with could contain lots of vegetables, maybe things that you could grow, but then also using some of these things. But be careful, you don't want to use them all straight away, and then you haven't got anything left for the rest of the week. So could you think of 2 meals that you could have eaten during World War II using some of the food that you were rationed? And if you manage to complete that, I've also added a video onto Edmodo from the BBC website, which has a lady talking about her experiences during World War II and also her experiences of rationing. And she'll also show you what a week's worth of rations looked like as well, so you can see it for yourselves. Thank you, Year 3. Thank you for watching.